So thank you for coming back with me. So we had an introductory interview, I guess in October now, November season 4, December season 5, and we're in January. I've been really looking forward to discussing this season because it was a pivotal one for the show and for, I think, the franchise as a whole. The show got its second or third wind at this point with a transfer to Sci-Fi Channel. It was thematically a great season, introducing a number of different concepts. You had a huge hurdle to overcome because very arguably the conscience of the show in terms of the character voices was gone. And Corin Nemec did a pretty darn good job substituting. And then there was a fracture in the fan base at the same time throughout this season. Websites like Save Daniel Jackson emerged. I believe at this point that was what had happened. And there were online forums were developing in such a way where sides were really beginning to be drawn. We've kind of gotten over the honeymoon stage of the internet where everyone's all, oh, you can think whatever you want to think. There's plenty of room for us over here. And people are starting to take sides. And SG-1 season 6 came out at about that time in 2002. What was your perception of this season coming back in and being like, okay, I guess we're not going anywhere just yet. So year 3, yay! Yeah, what do we do?
I didn't mention when we joined, Paul and I joined season for season 4, it was with the understanding that we would do 2 more seasons, and we did those 2 seasons. With when the 5th season ended, we assumed that would be it, and then Brad came in and told us that Sci-Fi had picked up the show for a 6th season.
Oh, dang!
Okay. And for that reason, from a, totally sort of uncreative, sort of a non-creative standpoint, from a delivery standpoint, is very different for us. One of the reasons being that when we produced the show for Showtime, we didn't really get many notes per se. But then when we shifted to Sci-Fi, the Sci-Fi executives had a lot to say on the scripts, on the cuts, and progressively over time became more involved as well. So that was different as well. And then, as you mentioned, the departure of Daniel Jackson and the introduction of Jonas Quinn certainly it changed things creatively and also behind the scenes. You mentioned the Save Daniel Jackson campaign, and that was kind of interesting in that, it almost created a fracture in the fandom that I think existed prior to Daniel's departure. And really what it came down to ultimately was the kind of sort of Daniel supporters and the Sam and Jack supporters, which was kind of strange. So much so that, even after Daniel came back, and I remember one episode, what was the episode? We'll come to it. I think it's like a season 7 or 8 episode where Sam and Daniel are basically captured, and they're being held in a warehouse, and then O'Neal comes in. And the first person he goes to is Sam to see if she's okay, and that created such a sort of outrage on certain boards because they were like, "Well, he should have gone to Daniel first."
Oh my God!
And it was just kind of the smallest things, but this was. It was always kind of present. My first taste of it was back in my very first episode, Scorched Earth, where O'Neal, kind of presses the button to destroy the ship.
And Daniel
has Daniel on it, which wasn't in the first draft, but ultimately, was included in subsequent drafts and also, appear, obviously was in the final cut. And there was also a scene, a post climactic scene where O'Neill and Daniel just kind of like have a little kind of talk it out and everything's cool moment, which was cut, which I think would have helped a lot. But, since then, that was the beginning for me of my realization that there was certainly a rift in the fandom when it came to Jack's affections.
Loyalties as well. It was, I don't think it was intentional of you guys by any means. But when Jack said in season 5 to Hammond about the Colonins, you cannot capitulate to these people. They are lying bastards. People looked, there was a sizable number of fandom that looked at Jonas as a lying bastard in season 6. And they had to kind of walk their way back from that to see this character as, okay, he was someone who would not stand up against his government. And then by the end of that first episode, did stand up against his government, but he still had a lot to prove in terms of a lot of those fans who were just like,
yeah, to be honest with you, I think there were certain fans who just saw him as a replacement and they were going to hate him no matter what.
Yeah.
So for instance, whether it was Jack's line or they held him responsible for Daniel's death, I personally thought all that was kind of a bit of a stretch. I felt like they were looking for excuses not to like the character. And I mean, you can not like the character. I would always take issue with the reasoning. Right. I mean, really the reason they didn't like the character was because he was
Corin had an uphill battle one way or the other. Yeah. Could not envy him for that. That was a hard job, Yeah. So, but I think that he added such a flavor to that season that, people with an open mind just didn't see coming. And season 6 has a real mixed bag of stories. Thanks for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. You can find the full live stream shows on our YouTube channel or visit dialthegate.com for the complete schedule. See you on the other side.